So the reason I'm telling you the story is it's very, very different from what we all study at IIT Madras in the aerospace department. Okay, it's simply taking that engineering knowledge, the ability to understand, to question those kinds of principles, apply them to a completely different phenomena, completely different application. And I'm happy to tell you that about 10 years ago, I was traveling in an aircraft going from one location to another in the U.S., and I happened to sit next to some guy who said, started talking about what kind of business he does, and he said, we make these detectors to measure, blood flow and then predict whether people have, what kind of occlusion they have in their arteries. And it dawned on me that things that I had done back in the 70s actually became a product that is being used in the industry, in the healthcare industry 30 years later. Okay? And that is how research works. You do fundamental work, and hopefully you have done some useful things that other people can make use of. Eventually, sometimes 5 years later, sometimes 20, 30 years later, they actually become a useful product. So I can tell you that my research actually saves lives because I contributed, to that in some way. This is the other cool experiment that I've been involved with. This is the F-16 Excel airplane. Excel here meaning an experimental airplane owned by NASA. Look at the airplane. It looks a little bit different. The right side is different from the left side. And that's because the left side has been modified to perform something, to do something different. And the black area that you see is being particularly designed to predict a certain phenomena, to study a certain phenomena, which is the phenomena of laminar flow control. This was done particularly for supersonic flight. So this aircraft would fly something like Mach 2. We would collect data. The whole flight is over in 7 minutes. So you collect whatever data you can during that period of time, and then you make changes and so forth. So this was a program that lasted about 3 years. The team members, it was not a program just by one company. There were 3 companies involved. There were 3 different centers of NASA involved. So there is this group of, people coming from 6 different significant research organizations working together, coming up with something very, very innovative, very new, completely uncharted territory. And then it so happened that this particular team ended up getting 2 very important awards from NASA for the success that we achieved. So again, the result of this is today, if you look at the 787 program, the 787, which is the airplane that, the newest airplane that Boeing has built, some of these principles have made their way to this airplane. This was done back in the early 90s, so 92 to 95, 96 time frame, and it has taken roughly 20 years before some of these ideas have actually become part of an airplane that is being delivered to the customers. Another one, this is ended up being a paper study. This is a supersonic airplane, which we were looking at as a follow-on to the Concorde that many of you probably know about. The Concorde was getting old. It was not very efficient. So there was an effort to try to understand and explore whether we can build a different airplane, new airplane. We did a lot of studies on this in partnership with NASA and other companies. The studies concluded that it is feasible, but there are still things that we don't fully understand. So this did not turn into a hardware that we could demonstrate, but nevertheless we learned a lot from it that then became applied to other places. One other airplane that I will show you is something that I worked on, not so much in the development of it, but in improving it. This is an airplane that was designed, it's called the C-17. Actually, India has ordered 10 of these airplanes to be purchased from Boeing. Probably deliveries will start in a couple of years from now. And it's a very unique airplane. It is a monstrous, huge airplane, comparable in size to the 787, but it can take off in 3,000 feet of runway. and it can also land in 3,000 feet. It can actually reverse. It's like a car. You can reverse this airplane, so that it can turn around and do its thing. So my role in this was to look at what improvements do we need to make in order to make this airplane to be better. Not only on the airplane side, airplane by itself, but also on how we manufacture the airplane. How can we improve the efficiency in the way we manufacture the airplane so it costs less, has fewer problems and so forth. So those are airplanes that I was fortunate enough to be associated with and contribute to. What I do these days is basically from Bangalore. That's where our center is located. But all those stars that you see are places where we have partners that we work with in engineering and research. Some of these partners are universities like IIT Madras. And the things that we do are distributed, working with various partners in a variety of things. This lecture is not about what we do, so I'm not going to go into those details. So coming to lessons learned, first lesson, I think, something to think about and something to take seriously is we all talk about success. Everybody wants success. I don't think there's anybody in this room who says, no, I don't want success. But we don't mean the same thing when we say we want to succeed. Professor Koil Pillai may have one concept of success. Somebody sitting 3 rows behind will have a completely different idea of what it means to be successful. We thought success meant something when we were 20 years old. We think success is something else when we are 40 or 50. So important thing is to understand what is success. Because unless you know what it is, you will never know when you get there. Right? Or did you get there? You won't know. So your motivation, what is it that you mean by success and what is it that drives you in that direction? Is it because it's challenging, I just want to explore? A lot of researchers do that. People go climb Mount Everest. Why did you climb Mount Everest? I don't know, because it's there. Okay? It's the fun of going there, the challenge of going there. The joy of discovery is another reason many times researchers get into doing something or the other. But then there are other things like people do things because they feel they are helping others. It could be recognition from peers. I want to do it and I win this award. So I'm going to work very hard towards that. Okay? There are people who do it because they want to make more money. Or maybe because I want to leave a legacy. I want people to remember me when I'm gone as somebody who contributed to whatever. Okay? So there are very different ways, very different reasons why one, gets into doing anything. So you need to be somewhat clear about which of these, or maybe there is something else, some combination of these maybe. You need to be clear about that because that will help you to stick in, put in the effort to continue working in that direction. From a technology perspective, we have, there is a lot of scientific methods, scientific principles that one discovers. But then the science by itself is not what we all generally use as products. So the science has to become a technology. Technology has to become applicable to engineering. And then engineering eventually ends up creating a product, which is what we give to somebody, which somebody can use, a user can use. So we need to be somewhat clear about what is the role of these things, these different stages, and where do we want to participate. There are people who are completely happy in the science realm. They are happy discovering new things that nobody else has found. They write papers, publish papers, and they are happy in the lab because I'm finding these cool new things that nobody else knows about. So that makes me happy. That's fine. There are other people, IIT as a technology institute, we must be more concerned about, okay, the scientific principle, scientific idea exists. So what do I do with it? How can I use it to do something? how can I validate, how can I demonstrate it can do something. That's generally what we call technology. When it comes to the engineering side, it is more about, okay, I know how to do it once, but can I do it again and again? Can I get more efficient at doing this thing? Can I do it so that it is less, costs less than the first time it costs, a huge amount? So those are the kinds of things engineering is about. And at the end of the day, it's about creating a product. It could be a simple product, it could be a complicated product, but something that I can give to someone and they use it and say, hey, I like this. I enjoy using this product. Thank you for making this happen. Okay? Each of those has its own set of challenges, its own set of, joy when you accomplish it. So you have to think about where do I want to be, as a career, where do I want to spend most of my life doing? And that's one of the reasons why we have so many courses in the institute, right? We're not talking about, well, we'll just teach you one thing so that you can do that for the rest of your life. You learn a variety of things because one should understand the relationships between these things and make a conscious choice about where we want to be in that stream. Now, when we talk about relationships, this think global, act local, it's not a new phrase. I think it's a phrase that is used by other people, but in a slightly different context. When I say think global, what I mean is think from a system perspective. If you took courses in thermodynamics, it will say, there is the system and everything else, right? Now here what I mean by system is that we are part of a larger system. Okay, if you are, anything that we do, there is the holistic thinking that needs to come in, that we are part of a larger system, we are contributing to a larger system. So how do we do that? How does the work that I do, how does the research that I do, how does the engineering that I do impact everything else? It's very popular these days to talk about the environment. We have to be very conscious about the environment. The environment is a system. So if we are using too many plastic bags and throwing them away, somehow those plastic bags are influencing what is happening around. If we are using too much pesticide, somehow that is affecting other things happening in the environment, because the pesticide is a part of the system that is affecting the rest of the system. So it is important as knowledgeable people, as responsible people, for us to think about things in a holistic way, think about the impact you are making on the system. We may still only be working on a small piece of it. Okay, we are a specialist, or our responsibility is to work on a small piece of it. But even when we are doing that, we need to think about what else am I making, what kind of other impact am I making. For example, in the olden days, when we were manufacturing, especially in aerospace, people used to use all kinds of chemicals. People used chemicals that actually became, damaging to the environment. So we have actually done research about how can we eliminate certain kinds of chemicals so that the impact on the environment is less. If you're using aluminum, for example, aluminum is very, very, requires a lot of energy to extract the aluminum from the ore. So there are people doing research on how can we reduce the amount of energy that should be consumed in extracting the aluminum from the ore. Okay? So there are ways to contribute in a responsible way. So I'm asking you to think about it, not as I will do whatever I think is right, but how does that affect other areas. So the picture on the right kind of tells you, we are not totally independent. Those two guys on the top are sitting there thinking, those guys have to work, the hole is on their end. But of course, if the boat sinks, they go down with the boat. Right? So that's kind of the concept I wanted you to think about.